Hello and welcome to Bear Necessities. My name is Bear, and today we're going to be finishing up our Desert of Flame class series with Scouts. If you haven't seen the other videos for the other archetypes, they will be posted in the description below. But what we're essentially doing here is going over all the new abilities each class gets in Desert of Flames. So, without further ado, let's get started with the Bards and the Durge class. At level 52, Durges get a class-defining skill with Percussion of Stone. So this is a group buff that has a chance to proc a stone skin upon being damaged. This is amazing for tanks, making them proc stone skins, but it also can proc of AoEs, giving stone skins to everyone in the group. So it's awesome for tank and off-tank groups in the raid. At level 55, Durges get Scream of Death, which is just another stealth combat ability for Durges, but it does a ton of damage over time. You must be flanking or behind for this, but overall, it's just a great combat art to add to the Durge arsenal. And at level 58, Durges actually are unique in that they get two new skills. One is Group Res, so this is another class-defining skill that really kind of puts Durges in the realm of res duty most of the time, especially for non-tanks that don't need a res without res effects, because now they'll have a single target and a group res, and most raids run 2 of them, so you got 4 reses. At level 58 as well, they get Cacophony of Blades. So this is a short-term spell that gives everyone in the group haste, as well as a 100% proc on melee damage. So this is a super good ability that adds quite a damage for the group, as well as the raid eventually. But this is great for scouts and anyone who is, well, it says on a hit. So I think that also would proc off of spells. I don't know, this could have changed over time. Used to it only procced off of melee. And it even says in the description, disease damage with every melee strike. But it reads on a hit. I don't know if this is just a live change or if this is something that's also on TLE. I'd have to look into it. Alright, so that's it for Durges. Next, let's move on to Troubadours. At level 52, Troubadours get Requiem of Reflection. This is a pretty limited group buff that's similar to Percussion of Stone, but it only works on non-physical spells. So essentially, like say you get hit by an AoE, it will put a buff on you that you're immune to like another AoE or another non-physical damage, and it will essentially damage the mob to reflect some of that damage back. So it's not super useful, but it may potentially have some limited usage. I know as a troop, I barely ever ran this group buff. At level 55, troops get in pretty much one of the better debuffs for TLE servers, because mobs are so, their primary stat is what essentially causes a lot of their damage. But this demoralizing processional debuff actually decreases all primary stats, so agi, strength, int, and wisdom, by 146, and this is just an adept. But super good debuff, and it reduces the damage since it's tied to primary stat on mobs. So being able to reduce it all across the board is just amazing. You're gonna have this on the mob with both troops every time. And at level 58, troops get Perfection of the Maestro. This is similar to Cacophony of Blades, but it increases int by a certain amount, and it procs off hostile spells. So it's 100%, but it's only on hostile spells. This is just a super great spell. It makes troops even more pivotal for mage-based DPS groups. Alright, so that's it for Bards. Let's move on next to Rogues, starting with the Brigand. At level 52, Brigands get Amazing Reflexes. So these are definitely less amazing than they used to be. It used to give Brigands AoE immunity 100% of the time. So you could essentially be in, not have to worry about AoEs, and you could just be in there DPSing all the time. But now It's kind of just a proc that every now and then you'll get a short duration AoE immunity. So as long as a Brigand kind of keeps an eye on this buff and has like a maintained spell monitor or something for it, then they'll be fine. But if not, if it's not up, they get a joust just like any other scout for AoEs. At level 55, Brigands get their biggest class defining skill. It's called Dispatch. So this is just first off, it's just a decent damage ability from flanking or behind, but the real juiciness of it comes from the combat mit reduction. So it's 12.2, as well as the mitigation of the target versus all damage by like a certain amount as well. That mitigation versus all damage, that's including spells, physical, crush slash pierce, and every type of element as well. So Nox, elemental, arcane, etc. So this is a really, really good debuff, and it improves the offensive damage of your raid by a ton. At level 58, this is a pretty big DPS booster for Brigands. They essentially get this spell called Double Up. So used to, it was kind of strange. You would kind of cast a bunch of abilities and then you would press Double Up and then it would just, redo their damage immediately. They've changed this over time to now it's an ability that you use, and then so you use it first, and then for the next short amount of time, anytime you use a combat art, it actually doubles the damage. So it says it instantly recast any combat art the Brigand uses. So like say you use this and you use Dispatch, it'll actually dispatch twice. So it'll double up the damage of it. Just the same thing as like an ability double cast or something like that. All right, so that is it for Brigands. Up next, we're going to be talking about the Swashbuckler. At level 52, Swashbucklers get an insane class-defining skill. They actually get a Hurricane. So this is an always-on buff that makes their auto attack essentially cleave. I think it's 52% of the time at Master. So this is super, super good, and it makes swashes even better for AoE damage. At level 55, swashes get a decent ranged ability, so it's also blue, so it does decent damage, but there's not much more to say about it. It does AoE damage around the target, and you have to be at range. And then finally at 58, swashes get another backstab ability that reduces offensive skills. So you can see crushing, disruption, focus, ordination, piercing, range, and slash. And it also decreases strike through. Not a super, super great ability, but having an extra combat art from behind is nice. So you're always going to have some extra buttons to press. That's really all there is to say about Swashbuckler. Let's move on to our last class section, which is Predators, and we'll start with the Ranger class. At level 52, Rangers get kind of a meme ability called Thorny Trap. So it's really only good for kiting, but you lay down like a trap or like a little swarm pet essentially, and then when the mob runs over it, it actually roots them and does a little bit of damage. And then when that root expires, it actually snares them. So it's not, I guess it's not like a terrible precast, but in general, it's rarely used. At level 55, Rangers get Stream of Arrows. So this is a great blue AoE that does some pretty massive damage. And it even does pretty good damage from a single target perspective. So it's a great new ability to add to the bow arsenal for Rangers. And then at level 58, Rangers get Sniper Shot. So Sniper Shot is kind of like a Ranger Ice Comet in terms of damage, but it has a 5-minute recast. So it's not really good. It's not as good as Assassinate, Honestly, it's overall just a weird ability that does really good damage, but it's just up so little. It's really hard to say whether or not it's a great ability. Honestly, I wish either the recast would get reduced pretty drastically or it would just get buffed. It's just a little underwhelming if you compare this to Assassinate, which is what I think they were trying to do with this skill. You have to be stealth to use this ability, and it's just overall not a great ability compared to other big damage abilities like Ice Comet and Assassinate. Speaking of Assassinate, let's move on to our last class, the Assassin. At level 52, Assassins get a really nice buff for the Bard or the tank in their group called Apply Poison. This is essentially just a proc buff for the Assassin's buff partner that gives them a poison damage over time. This can only be realistically used by a Bard or a tank since they do melee damage and it's on a melee hit. And as you can read, you can't actually put this on another predator or a rogue. At level 55, Assassins get a class-defining skill called Concealment. As you know, Assassins have a lot of stealth attacks, so this ability essentially lets you chain a bunch of those stealth attacks together, because every time you hit the mob, it actually puts you into stealth. So this is a great ability, and this is a way to unload a ton of burst damage. So essentially what you're going to want to do is, you can see it has a 30-second recast, which I think it's 1 minute with no reuse. You know, there's certain abilities that you'll line up and you'll be able to use this and hit like 5 or 6 stealth abilities in a row. And then the next time this is up, kind of rinse and repeat. Super good burst. Kind of has like a burst phase element to Assassins. And as of now, you know, you're hitting Shroud or Mass Strike in order to get into stealth to use your abilities. But with Concealment, getting all those stealth abilities off will be much easier. And then at level 58, Assassins get Death Blow. This is a great ability that actually does more damage if they're below 33% health. And when I say more, it's literally like triple the normal damage. So this does have a 45-second recast normally with no reuse. But you want to make sure that you're only using it under that 33% health window, unless you know you're on a mob that's going to have, 10 minute, then, you may want to throw this in there. So that's it for Assassins and Scouts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and are enjoying the Varsoon server. Keep working on those second hunters items, getting your prismatic and your golden Afridi boots, which will be Biss next expansion unless they make some changes. Again, I hope that these videos are informative and I hope you're enjoying them. Let me know in the comments what your plans are for DOF, and if you want to support the channel, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, clicking the bell for notifications when new content is available. Thanks again everyone, and I will see you in Desert of Flames.